All right. Thanks for partaking and being a part of our Wednesday night Bible study. And we'll have some activities here in just a moment and sort of engage a little bit. But I'm so thankful that you're here as we spend some time in the Word with the second half of our shame lesson. And so I want you, though, as I know this is digital, this is weird. Like, imagine you just walked into class, right? You just walked into class and you sat by your good friend or somebody you didn't know, right? Hey, engage them. And so if you want to do that in the comments, that'd be great. But I would love, hey, right now as you enter class, hey, send a message to somebody. A lot of you have your phones and just, hey, how you doing? I'm in class. Or, hey, join me in class. Are you going to get here? I know some of you text somebody, hey, you coming to class? And so engage them. Maybe ask some questions, send a video. I don't know how you can do that real quick, and just act like you do at the beginning of class, not paying attention to anything I'm saying for a moment. Just kidding. But I think that would be helpful. I hope you're staying connected to one another. Reach out to me. I would love to see your face and to hear from you. That would be a blessing to me. So let's do that. A couple announcements as we get started. Sunday, we're going to have a Zoom devotional and spend some time together. Have a fun, interactive game that we need. We need some people to participate in, so hype that up. Tell somebody. I'll be sending out some more details how you can get prepared for that. But I think it'll be a great time for us to spend together and reconnect with our devotionals. I'm missing those devotionals on Sunday night, and so we'll start at 7, the usual time that we get in the car or get in the vans and head over. So then also I wanted to remind you to send some pics in for our Friday check-in. Our Friday slideshow, I'm getting messages from a lot of our older members, and it's been an encouragement to them to see some of the little kids, and we're missing some of your faces. And so if you could send it, hey, something you've done, something you've made, something you've eaten, stick your face in there. Whatever it is that you're doing, your bored face, like I'm so sick of quarantine, it doesn't really matter. Something funny, something not funny, something serious. We just want to hear from you and to be able to include that in our slideshow. So hope that you'll participate and be a part of that. One more thing before we kick this off and get going is we need to take care of some housekeeping. Our last contest, I have all the names in front of me. Hope I got them all. If I made a mistake, let me know. The ones that responded with their shame, no shame game, I've got Ben, Leo, Lauren, Jacob, Emmy, Hallie, Macy, Rylan, Jordan, and Jaden. So I'm going to mix these up right here, and this was for our other Sonic gift card. Jacob won the last one, the gift card, and the books, the Out With Doubt books, and so this one was for the other Sonic gift card. You get a little quarantine snack. I'm mixing this up. I'm not looking. All right, here it comes. The name is Ben. Ben is the winner. Congratulations, Ben. So here's another one, another contest, and I hope that you're ready. What we're going to do for this one is take a little bit of a pause. Take a little bit of a pause and read Romans 1. You're going to need to read Romans 1 to be able to participate in the things we're about to do, or at least to be able to do it well. To be able to do it well, read through Romans 1, and then an activity will, push pause, read Romans 1, then push play, and there'll be a timed activity for you to participate in. And what's going to happen is you need to count. It's a word scramble. So you need to count how many you got right. So for every one you get right, you're going to get your name in the box that many times to win. All right? Does that make sense? So go through there. You're going to have random amounts of time to be able to choose and get this right. So you have to, this is obviously the honor system, you're at home. You have to get the word right before you switch, before it switches to the next word. So count them all up, the answers, I'll give you the answers when I get back on, and then that's the game. So I've rambled here. Hopefully I've made that clear enough for you to be able to do this. We're going to push pause, right? Read Romans 1 on the screen. We'll show you, and then once you push play again, the game will begin. And I need to hear from you after you're done in the comments, by text, however it is, how many you got right. All right, ready, read.
Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man, you were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure what you're worth. Crucified, laid behind the stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man, you were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure what you're worth. Crucified, laid behind the stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all. Crucified, laid behind the stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above all.
All right, how did you do? How'd that go for you? Were you able to see some of those words? Did it help you to read? Did you connect? So you have 8 possible chances to get your name in the hat. Who made a perfect score? Let me know in the comments, and so I'll enter you in. I'll enter everybody in for the chance to win. How did you do? Some interesting words show up in Romans chapter 1 to help us. We're talking about overcoming shame. If you remember from last time that we were together on our Wednesday class, it's been a week in between there, but last time on our Wednesday class we talked about shame, right? This emotional response to sin. That's how Philip Jenkins, the author of that, put that together. And so this positive emotional response to sin. Sometimes we can also have or feel shame for something that we ought not to feel shame about. And sometimes we don't feel shame for things we ought to feel shame about. And so ultimately, though, we talked about how shame can be and ought to be a good thing in our lives if we have shame over the right things and not about the wrong things. And so how do we discern that when we think about the Bible? I think this section we're going to look at is going to help us with that, but also I believe it's good for us to be able just to think about that and wonder and understand. If you go all the way back where we started also with the shame, we remember the picture that we see in Genesis of Adam and Eve hiding from God. See, shame makes us hide from the God that we love, the God that loves us, from the people who love us, and not show up the way that we should in their lives and how we should show up for ourselves in this world. And so shame, when we think about that, we need help, right? Because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. And at some point we come across, and if we haven't, we ought to have this shame. Where should we feel that? How should we talk about that? I think Romans 1 will help us. But can I give you an idea as we start this of how I think about shame, or something that came to my mind that can really help us, especially in overcoming? If you're accessing this video on the youth group page, you may be able to look down a few posts and see one that I shared about the apocalypse. But in that, one of John writes this great article, but in the opener of that article, he talks about one of my favorite football games. And it shows the 2005, or he describes the 2005 national championship for the Texas Longhorns. And it was the second half, which was so stellar. You know, they had a pretty, it was an average first half, I could say, but it was just poor. They got the first half of that game, and really 3/4 of that game wasn't how they wanted it to be. And I think shame's a lot like that. Something that happens, we feel this, and we need to know how to respond and how to move on. What are some of the things I need to do? And there was no hiding. They responded in a big time way, and they have this positive second half. They become victorious over the mistakes that they had made, or just things that didn't really go their way. And of course, they win the national championship. How do you respond to shame? I think when we feel that shame, we have that pain, our next word will be guilt. And those are really good words to look back to back and understand the difference of those and how they are related, right? Shame often brings some guilt, or we have guilt, especially whenever we are responding to shame in the appropriate way. But how do we overcome the shame that we feel? How can I, after I've said something I should not have said, right? Or after I've done something that I should not have done, and I've been maybe living a way that I should not live. How do I overcome that? How do I respond in the second half? How do I become victorious after mistakes? And so Romans 1 talks about that really powerfully. And we won't talk about all those details. In class it would be easier, and interaction would be easier. But I want to give you 3 things that Philip highlights here in helping us as Paul communicates the importance, right, of the gospel in overcoming shame. 3 things that he highlights, right? And for Paul, it makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense to Paul to keep a message like the gospel to ourselves. It is the gospel that helps us overcome that shame. And so you read Romans 1, but let's highlight again for us, beginning in verse 14. Beginning in verse 14, I want you to see through 17 what 3 things that we need to see in relation to, or these unique phrases that can help us overcome shame and be motivated to be who God wants us to be in the second half, right? To be victorious. Romans 1:14. I'm under obligation. This is Paul. I'm under obligations to everybody. To Greeks, to barbarians, to the wise, to the foolish. So I'm eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. I can't wait the gospel is what I'm about. See, why? For I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Are you ashamed of the gospel? Being ashamed of the gospel, especially as walking and striving to be who your parents are trying to help you to be, who you know who you want to be, especially as we associate, is a difficult thing. It's a hard thing to do. For why? It is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. For as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. If you go on there, right? We need that because the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness. So those who are hiding in their shame, unwilling to let the gospel come in and take it away, they have something coming. It's this wrath. But I want you to see the three phrases and what made Paul so unashamed. And I want to challenge all of us to grow to be unashamed of this message. First of all, the phrase is the power of God. The gospel is the power of God. He can take away that shame, right? Some of us might sit in situations and say, oh, I don't really care, or hide from that shame, or even Philippians 3:19, 17 through 19, remember the glorying in the shame, not even realizing that I should be ashamed of a certain thing. I think a lot of us aren't really aware of the fact that we should be ashamed of not being proud of the gospel message. Remember, Paul wrote to the Galatians and he said, hey, I am just, that if I don't boast in anything but this message, right? The cross. And so not being proud in that way of this message is something that we need to feel shame for, right? But if I have this message, right, it's the power of God. Why would we be ashamed of that message? We ought to be proclaiming his power. It's made manifest by the resurrection, the gospel, right? The death, the burial, the resurrection, the life we're called to live because of it. So it is the power of God. Wouldn't you want that power, right? And maybe we haven't experienced, and maybe some of you watching haven't made that decision or have been reborn, but some of you perhaps have. Maybe you can have a discussion with your parents or somebody who has experienced the forgiveness that the gospel offers, and think about how powerful it is to be forgiven, to not have that shame anymore. And so, first of all, it's the power of God, but it is, number two, for salvation. It's for salvation. You need to highlight that, right? Because it is what saves us. It's the only thing that can save us. I can't overcome my sin or the things in the past based upon how good I am. And I think that's where our analogy separates, right? It was really Vince Young in that game who put the Longhorns on his back and overcame some of his own mistakes and the mistakes of the team and really won that game in the final seconds. Of course, it took other pieces in place, but he was able, right, in a way to put it on my back. Remember, we talked about shame being this backpack that we wear of just mistakes and pain and hurt, and it's weighing us down. Well, the way that we get that off is not by anything we've done. It's a saving. The power is that, hey, he comes in and he takes that all away. We ought not to be ashamed at the very thought of holding back this message. People's souls are in jeopardy. Your soul, my soul, when we don't take care of this shame appropriate. So not only do we have the power of God, it's for salvation. And finally, it's for everyone. It's for everyone. Notice in verse 14, Paul says, I'm under no obligation to who? I am under obligation to who? Both Greeks and barbarians, right? And he's talking to Jews here. So he's got an obligation to Jews, but he's got these Greeks, to barbarians, to these heathens. They need to know heathens. So, right, no matter what color my skin is, no matter how much money I have, no matter how poor I am. And so we have the opportunity to interact, and you have the opportunity to interact with people on a daily basis. And who are in need of something. How do we overcome the shame? Who can have access to this overcoming? It's available for everybody. Everybody ought to have that opportunity. And so when we consider the power of the message of Romans chapter 1, are you ashamed of that message? How do we know if we're ashamed of that message? Have we told anybody about it? Do we mind letting people know that that's what I believe and that's what I'm about? And the reason I brought this up, and you say, well, how does that really help me overcome the shame of the past? And I think that the ideas are connected. I think that people who are ashamed, who don't share the message, have a little bit of shame in them. I think that becomes clear in the message. Why wouldn't we want people to have that? Well, maybe we don't really feel like we deserve that. Or maybe we don't really feel like we're forgiven. We still have this shame. There's something in my life, and I haven't really come to understand that God has totally wiped away my sins. And as I walk in the light, as He is in the light, He's right there with me as my advocate, cleansing me from all my sins. And so I hope you'll think about and spend some time in prayer. There's some discussion questions that I posted before the last post, and for you to sit and think through. Hey, make a comment if you want to do it publicly, if you have some questions to clarify some of this, or you want to send a message. I don't really like discussing my personal spiritual life in a public comment on Facebook. So, but maybe you have a question that will help clarify, or something that you think people need to know and hear. But maybe also you want to talk about something. Maybe you can send that message to me personally. There's Tyler, there's your parents, there's some other youth deacon, there's somebody that is willing and able to help you answer some of these questions. But I hope you'll remember, I think that one of the things that comes to the top in this situation is we ought to let this message out, but sometimes we don't want to let the message out because we feel shame. It's not really real in our lives. And so if I could pray for you and help you to understand that message, to overcome that shame, spend some time here. Let the Word dwell in you richly and see the beauty of it. Overcoming shame is a really important thing for us, and we need to be unashamed as we take the gospel message to the world and to our families, to our friends. So I appreciate you participating in this message. Don't forget to share your pictures. Don't forget to share your comments. Don't forget to join us and be talking up our Sunday night devotional, to spend some time together. It'll be a really wonderful time live to do that. I hope that you have a good evening, and I'll talk to you again soon.